management, operation risk management, product control, middle and back office operations, client management, global stakeholder engagement, change management, business governance. Mitul has honed his skills in various middle and back office functions. He excelled in client management and global stakeholder engagement, utilizing systematic working methodology and strong analytical skills to drive the results. Throughout his career, he has held various leadership positions, including serving as the former Chief Operating Officer for Indian markets at Standard Chartered. Prior to this role, he contributed his expertise at renowned institutions such as JP Morgan, DE Shaw Credit Suisse, and other firms. He is recognized as dynamic leader who brings strategic vision and operational excellence to every role he undertakes. So, with a passion for empowering individuals in the finance industry, Mithul is committed to sharing his wealth of knowledge and experience. So, we are honored to have you here, and I would like you to please take over the screen for now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neha. That was indeed very a warm welcome. Thanks a lot for that. I now start share my screen because I have a small
Yeah,
presentation.
sure, sure.
Yeah, sure. Let me just fix this and then I will start.
So, are you able to share your screen?
Not yet.
Please see now.
Sure. Are you able to see now, everyone?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Uh, to begin with, I am very glad and honored to have this forum to share my experience about my journey in the financial world, corporate world, and my own journey over the last few months, starting my own business. And given that the topic is about successful MVP development and critical thinking about it, I'm going to start off with what an MVP is, or what it requires, and then how do we go about the thought process behind that MVP. And I'm going to pepper that session or prepare this session with some examples from my own life and from real world case studies. In fact, at the end of this presentation, as an appendix, I've put in some case studies of successful startups and not so successful or absolute failure startups. And that I will, when I share the deck with Dr. Neha, she can pass it on to you. So feel free to ask it from her. I'll share it once this session is done. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and see what MVP, critical thinking around MVP is all about. So to understand MVP, which is the all right, to understand MVP, we must first understand what is a lean startup methodology. Now, what do you mean by lean? Lean means without any beef or fat. It's just structure, right? So first thing is what you need to do before you even go ahead and ask people to buy your services or your product. You first need to understand what are your potential customers what are your potential customers thinking about your product ideas, be it a service or be it a proper product like an iPod or an Apple phone or a service like Teams, right? So that's what we are going to do about in this particular phase, and then we will build a product with just the bare bones features, right? We're not going to add any fancy stuff. We'll stick to minimum uh, core features of that product. And then we are going to release it in the market and then collect data so that we can reiterate the improvements in our product. What I mean by that is somebody from the for potential customers base says that I didn't like this feature or this could have been done this way. We would bring that feedback in and then build and improve our product better, right? So what lean methodology or lean startup methodology emphasizes in is rapidly working on your product. What I mean by is that if you want to send out a service, then just give the bare bones of the service out, then understand what the feedback is from the customers or the users, and then develop your product. What this allows startups to do is that it helps validate our ideas, whether it can be done or whether it's feasible, before we burn a lot of uh, funds running a product which may be not viable or may not be better suited to the customer's needs. So what we got to do is whatever product or service that we are trying to push in the market or we are building on, working on, the first thing that we need to understand is what problem of the customer am I solving with this offer? That's the only thing, because customers don't really want anything that does not solve their problem. All right. So if you're working on a product that will solve their problem, or somehow, or if you're looking at the high end side, which will give them that feeling of belonging in the HNI world, or feeling that I have done something with my life. If you can give that kind of feeling, and if your core customers are able to identify those feelings with your product or services, only then can you go ahead with the MVP into a full-fledged product developed offering to the market. All right. So understanding lean methodology is very important for aspiring startup entrepreneurs. And now that we've talked about MVP or minimum viable product, what is the definition of minimum viable product? Well, at, at its very basic, it's a core set of features and functionalities that customers think that they're deriving the most value of. All right. It requires least effort to develop and put it out in the market. It's the very basic version of your idea that is released in the market to validate your assumptions in releasing that product or service out in the market, with the idea that you get good feedback to further enhance and better your product. All right. So to reiterate the point, it is about core sets of features and functionalities that customers actually require without any major developmental costs. And when you release in the market, it's with the assumption, it is with the idea to validate the assumptions behind your product and to gather feedback to ensure that it is made better, it is enhanced, it is beefed up to give full-fledged services. And the most important part of the MVP is to risk the or to test the most riskiest assumptions. We think that my core product, let's assume that my core product is for the age of, let's say, 16 to 21 years old. Now, you know that they're very fickle minded because they have so much on their fingertips that grabbing their attention is very difficult. So, what we're going to do with the MVP is we're going to say that my assumption is that this particular product that I'm launching in the market for the 16 to 20-year-olds is going to hold their attention for more than 5 minutes. How am I going to do that? I've done the product and I've put it out in the market. And if it is able to hold the attention of the 16-year-olds and the 20-year-olds for more than 5 minutes or even 4 minutes, then I can say that my MVP is good. And now I can quickly reiterate the improvement of the product based on the feedback that I have gotten. So first things first, to launch an MVP is you need to know that your primary users are identified and the need that your product or service is going to fulfill. So your product or service, it could be anything under the sun. It could be as nerdy as setting up a algorithm trading setup for hardcore traders, or it could be as uh, vainful or full of vanity as taking snaps on the phone and adding loads of features in it which other providers are not providing yet. All right. So you've got to define the primary core need of your core problem of your uh, target audience or your target market. Like if I were to give an example of my own startup, my startup talks about providing investment banking training to fresh graduates and aspiring MBAs. Now, what is it that I'm addressing? It's not that they're not educated in finance or commerce, but I have found in my 19 years of work ex that at a very fresh level, at the entry level, the amount of expertise or knowledge required to have a fruitful career and not waste 5 years of your first 5 years of your career learning on the job. I have created a program that specifically targets that need of the industry, which is we need probably people who understand what they're getting into. And we are also addressing a demand that while the educational institutions are doing XYZ in finance, they're not addressing this particular core need. And that's what I'm doing. And my primary market now is just those 19-year-olds aspiring finance grads to about 28 to 30-year-olds who are in finance, but they want to enhance their careers. So that's the primary user that I'm defining. All right. When I'm focusing on the essentials, it is what is it that this market requires? How am I going to give it to them? What is my delivery method? So I'm going to focus on a few really important non-negotiable features and put it into my service or my product and send it out in the market to see whether my assumptions are right or not. Once these features, my service is launched, I will, based on the impact and the feedback that I've gotten, I will prioritize the features or services that has more value or people are liking it more, and also understand how the impact of that is going to be on the successive reiteration of my service and what is the effort required to implement that. And once I incorporate all these features, it's a cycle. Then my MVP becomes a better product, and then that better product becomes a full-fledged services. And it's a cycle that we keep on churning on and on and on, depending on the product, on the market requirements, and the feedback that we get from our users. All right. So, how do you validate MVP assumptions? So what you're going to do is you're going to identify your assumptions, which is examine your MVP concept, and you've got to really fix on one core assumption that has to be validated, right? That has to be validated. It's as simple as that. So if your product is about getting, let's say, fresh mineral water derived from the snows of the waters of the Himalayas, then that's the one thing that you're going to go and test in the market. That are people ready for Himalayan snow melted water in this market? Who is it going to go and help? Who are the customers who are going to buy this water? Because hey, it's water, right? Distillery bhi hai or fir Himalaya bhi hai, right? How is my water different? So those are the assumptions that you will have to identify, and you will then define your research and testing methods. So right nowadays, with the age of the internet, I have a lot of tools that will help me identify testing methods and validate each of these assumptions. The most basic is surveys, right? Now, surveys is you fill up a form and you get the users to test something and then give their rating. Now, in the FMCG world, I don't know how valid it is now, but back in the day when I was just starting up, and I remember it because it was such a distinct thing that whenever an FMCG wanted to launch a product in the Indian markets, the first thing that they did was they went to Hyderabad to test the product. So in Hyderabad, you will see a lot of new FMCG products that you may not see in your part of the country because that was the test market for FMCG. I don't know why they did it, but that's what the market experiment for FMCG products was, right? In today's day and age, you would realize when you're scrolling on your Instagram feeds, there will be some ad about, let's say, gym membership or a t-shirt or some other services which are like, hey, this is what we do, and can you just fill up this form and help us understand your needs so that we can call you and get you what you expect. That's what the validation methods are all about. And once you gather all this feedback, you will do this feedback gathering and then figure out what the insights are for your MVP features and what's your value proposition. What is your USP, unique selling proposition? What is it that people are liking about your product, and what is it that people are finding irritating, boring, or simply just a burden, not adding any value to the customer? So that's the thing that you need to do when you're gathering feedback. And once you gather feedback, you first understand who do you want the feedback from. So you reach out to your most enthusiastic customers. So my most enthusiastic customer is family. All right, that's the reality of my life, eh? So I go and ask my mom about my product, although she understands zero about finance, but she tells me that, hey, when I read this, I don't kind of understand what you're trying to say, right? Now that's a valid customer feedback, despite she not being my target market, because she's an early adopter and she helps me identify what is it that I need to help build quality insights. She is helping me from her own perspective to give me insights that help me uncover the pain points and help address the needs of what I'm trying to do. And once I gather this from a whole lot of early adopters, like my mom, there are 20 other people who are from her age group, but then my core market is 19 to 25 years, 30 years old, right? So I will go out and put this product out there for them by giving it to my team members, erstwhile team members, or to my ex-students and ask them, hey, do you like this? Once I get the data, I will really run a matrix and understand what is it that I need to change, keep as it is, or build on it. And that's what we do when we are running this MVP exercise. And once I get this feedback, it is all about analyzing this feedback. After analyzing, doing a deep dive on the data that I've gotten, I will prioritize improvements which are high impact changes. That means if I tweak my logo from this color to that color, it will help me gain even more followers, or it will help me with adaptability for even more customers. So I will do that. If I change this function from dropping in yes in by clicking on two buttons instead of three, then that's what I'm going to prioritize, and I'm going to help improve my customer experience. Once all of that is sorted, tested, we will roll out the updates for our new features or fix what was the pain point. This continuous feedback, analysis of feedback, then prioritizing the improvements, and implementing updates is what is going to be all about your MPV being now turned into a full-fledged product. All right. So what are the metrics that we determine for MPV success? We need to have KPIs, key performance indicators. Now, this term, I'm assuming that all of you are still in college and not yet had the privilege or privilege, let's keep it a privilege, that you've not had the privilege to work in the corporate sector, because KPIs is what drives corporate success. That's how we measure our performance, right? So it could be any KPI. For us in the banking sector, the KPI is sales. How many trades were done? How many trades were successful? How many trades are profitable? How many trades are in loss? Why they are in loss? And all of that, right? So for a business, it could be as simple as, am I generating enough revenue? If you're an app out there in the social media world, then do I have user signups? Are my users active? Because while I may have 100,000 users signing up, only 5 are active. Then what's the point of that app, right? My engagement levels, all of that is what you will have to determine, use, or implement or devise to help you determine the success of your minimum variable product. And then you want qualitative feedback. So you're gonna roll out another survey. And like I said, this whole MVP thing, and you will probably, I'll bore you to death by talking about feedback and understanding feedback and analyzing feedback, but that's the bulk of it. That's the crux of it. Because once you have developed a product, the bulk of it will remain the same unless you're going for an extreme overhaul because you're changing a strategy, right? So it is an internal cycle of feedback, understanding feedback, analyzing feedback, and then updating your product and rolling it out in the market, gathering more feedback, and so on and so forth. So the matrix, depending on the business, will define themselves, and with that matrix you will then develop a feedback methodology, which will help you uncover desired features that people want or pain points that people are struggling with. Like if you go to this, what do you call, Air India website, and you realize that they're asking for your PNR number, but every time you want to punch in your PNR number, the site freezes. Now, if somebody doesn't give that feedback to Air India, we are never going to get service that we want. And probably Air India will lose their customers, right? Because at the end of the day, eventually I'm going to get frustrated with the Air India experience and I'll probably go to Vistara. That's what it's all about, feedback. And feedback and acting upon feedback. In fact, in today's day and age, I'll tell you one thing is that if you don't engage your customer, if you don't listen to your customers, then no matter if you have $1 billion idea, you are not going to be successful. So always keep your ear to the ground, listen to what your users, your customers have to say about your product or services, and then act accordingly. All right. Don't be insensitive to feedback. Right. So preparing an MVP launch. So what do we do in this stage is we will define the launch as to what is the program all about, what are the timelines, right? What are the key milestones that in the first month, let's say today we are launching, then within a month, what are we going to do? So every 15 days we will have some promotion, then every month we will have some result on those promotions and all of that, right? And we are saying that within 90 days we should be able to generate X number of followers, or we should be able to do 10, X number of sales. And within those 90 days we will also gather the feedback. We will identify our early adopters, right? So in my case it was students who are just graduating or have graduated and they're now looking for a somebody to help them with their career. Because in India, we realize that not everybody has the right kind of exposure that helps them with their career. I've seen so many students in my experience when I'm teaching them or while I was teaching them, is that they actually told me that nobody guided me like this. Right. So that's my early adopters, that I know that this is my target market. I want to engage them, and then I'm going to tailor a message specifically for that audience. So I'm not going to, even though I have a master's in, let's say, I have a quantitative finance degree, or I have a master's in marketing from IMA. If I don't connect to my early adopters, then all those degrees are useless, right? So you got to keep that and pinpoint your target audience always and optimize onboarding. You have to ensure that your signing up process or your onboarding experience is frictionless. It is a non-negotiable, because that's the first time your customer is going to interact with you, right? It's a bare bone product. It's your enthusiasm towards customer satisfaction or customer delight is what's going to differentiate your product or your services from what the others are offering. Right, especially when you're walking into a crowded market like fintech or edutech or social media, right? Or nowadays we are talking about artificial intelligence, right? There are a dime a dozen websites out there which are doing something based on AI. How is it that you are ensuring that while your USP is intact, your customer sign up, your customer onboarding experience is delightful? If you keep those things in mind while you are working on your MVP launch, then I think you have won half the battle. All right. So, what are the effective launch strategies? Effective launch strategies, phase rollout. Let's say you want to just go, like a friend of mine who wants to work in the music business. He's like, I'm just going to focus on the Bombay market because we are from Bombay. So, he's just going to focus on Bombay first. And then, if he gets the right desired result, he will then move to Bangalore and then Delhi and wherever the music scene is most vibrant, right? So that's what he's doing. Then there's another, that's the phased rollout. Then you have targeted marketing. In here we are like, mine is a very targeted marketing. I'm not marketing myself to the entire world. I'm just marketing to a very specific set of people in this country. Out of the 1.4 billion people that we have, my target is just about 5 to 10% of it. But believe me, that 10% is enough for me to sustain as well, right? Then you have something called a responsive support. What you do is when you set up the business, you are always attentive to the customer's needs. So you roll out and then you like you go, hey sir, how are you? Did you enjoy the product? Is there anything that we can help you with? Is there anything that you want improvement on? Can I understand how was your experience? All of that. That's a responsive. What you're doing essentially is gathering feedback and working to ensure that your services or your products are up to the demands or the requirements of the current marketplace. And yes, now that there is response, now that there is feedback, you will work on these insights and you refine or enhance your product and regularly update an improved MVP based on the user feedback. So these are the things. And continuous improvement, whether you like it or not, is what drives businesses. If I were to say that, yeah, Apple released their iPhone 10 and then they just dropped the ball and they didn't improve on the phone that was iPhone 10, then what are you going to do? Nothing, right? You're just going to move to Samsung or Nokia or anything else, right? Because Apple didn't improve on their phone. So there was no continuous improvement, right? If you notice how Apple rolls out its phones also are, they release in few parts of the world and then later on in other parts of the world, right? So that's a phased rollout. So that's how you start building and launching your MVP, right? And most of it is intuitive. See, I'm a good Jew. So sometimes I don't rely on these business strategies and stuff. I just go with my intuition, with my Gujju Buddhi, right? Because sometimes common sense is far better than all this jargon that I'm throwing at you. So when in a fix, just speak to somebody who is in the business, who's been doing, even if he's a shopkeeper who's running a shop for 20 odd years, that 20 odd years of shopkeeping experience is way more useful in rolling out these strategies than an MBA in IMA or any other institute, and then knowing all this jargon, all right? So keep common sense, customer feedback, customer delight should be your goal when you're running this MVP launch strategies, all right? Now there are challenges. Of course, there will be challenges because uh, no plan goes according to the plan. Nothing goes according to plan is what I have learned over the last few odd years, and I'm learning this in the hardest sense since I've started it on my own. That plans have a way of not working according to what we want them to work on. So one of the potential challenges that you may have is cash flow. At the end of the day, we are in this business to earn, right? So if you're not generating cash flow, दैट मीन्स धंधे में रोलिंग नहीं है, मतलब कैश आ नहीं रहा है, तो हम कैश किसी को दे भी नहीं पाएंगे. If we are not able to pay our debtors or our service providers or people that whose services we are consuming, then they will stop giving us those services. And in the end, what will happen is we will have a dud product. That means we are going to eventually wind up. So we have to keep an eye out for cash flow. We have to ensure that we have enough funding to sustain our operations during this launch phase. Because sometimes you may think that the plan will be that I will earn, let's say, 100,000 rupees in the first 60 days and another 100,000 rupees in the next 60 days. But it may so happen that you've not even earned 50,000 in the next 90 days, right? So how are you going to work around that is something that you'll have to keep an eye out for. Then user onboarding. Every time you are in a business, you need to have a proper mechanism which will quickly onboard and engage your new users. And also, we have to ensure that once the customer is in, the customer doesn't go away. He or she stays with us, which is retention, and reducing churn, which is that they are not going away. So we have to ensure that we make it so interactive, so exciting that the customer stays with us and doesn't want to leave us. That's where you, as a founder, or your team who's in the customer facing role, will have to be very engaging and make it exciting for the customers to stick around with you. And technical scalability. Now that you have launched it, you'd have to build it 10 times, 100 times more than what it was. How do you gain traction in the market? How do you ensure that your market share is increasing? So you have to work on the technical scalabilities. Like, agar mera ye app hai, which is currently viable for only, let's say, 1,000 users, which is good. I got my 1,000 users. Now what? The 1,001st user is struggling. I need to ensure that my product is now scalable for 100,000 users. That's what we have to keep in mind, and these are the challenges that sometimes we keep on the back burner ki jab aayega tab dekh lenge, and that really leads to a free fall or downfall of your business. So please address these potential challenges when you're talking about MVP. Now, how do we analyze MVP performance data? We gather metrics. Remember, I said gather your feedback, your define your key performance indicators, which is your KPI, gather the data, then analyze the trends, because trending is what we do all our lives, right? If you go to the stock market, what you're doing, you're just trending the stock price, you're trending the stock market, trending the stock market information, right? Analyze patterns and insights to see, okay, oh, this particular demography is doing well, or this particular market is doing well in India, or this particular market in this particular sector is doing well. So all of that you will have to learn in your market research phase, which is how do you define demographics, how do you define a HNI or middle class or lower income class, right? How do you define, uh, cut, slice, and dice your data to analyze trends and insights, and then you assess the feedback that you've got, and then what you do is understand the feedback and ensure that your MVP is updated based on the feedback. Then you're working on your key metrics, because if your key metrics has doesn't work the way you have planned it, then it's time for you to go back to the drawing board and figure out what has gone wrong, and fix that, and relaunch. All right. So you will have to pivot or persist. What I mean by pivoting is that X thing is what you're offering. It's not working. So you give up on X and start working on a Y service. All right. Or if you're saying that based on the customer feedback, is saying that X is working and you should really put all your efforts in that X service, then you persist with it. That's what I mean by the third point, decide, which is pivot the MVP or persist with improvements, right? So like Facebook, they would have had the same situation. Right now we are launching it in Harvard, but then we are soon going to go worldwide. Should I just stick to people poking each other? If you're old enough, then you would know what I mean by poking on Facebook. It was something very stupid, but we all did when we were young. But it was something that worked, so they persisted with it for quite a long time. And then they realized from the feedback that poking is passe. Nobody is doing that. So they just completely removed poking from Facebook. Nowadays, if you log onto Facebook, you will not even know what poking is, right? So what they did, they analyzed the data, they assessed the data, and they decided that I'm going to work on this particular thing, or I'm just going to remove it. So that's what you need to do with your feedback, and decide whether you're going to stick with a particular thing or just completely take it off the table, right? Now, once all of this is done, your idea obviously is to go for a full-fledged product, right? So what you're going to do when you have to go for a full-fledged product is you expand your core features, right? So based on the functionality that you had offered, remember it was very core, absolutely skeletal, right? कि आपको ये चीज चाहिए, ये चीज मिल जाएगा. Now that you want to go for a full-fledged product, you're going to add a few more things, right? Like when I started out, I said, I'm just going to give you uh, this investment banking operations program, and that's about it. And then I realized that, hey, I do realize that uh, not only are technical skills important, but interpersonal skills are very important as well. And my students are struggling in presentations or in interviews or conversing with somebody senior. So what I did, I added one more functionality and I made it a full-fledged product that we are not only giving you domain knowledge, but we are also giving you personality development. Now I have a trained personality development trainer who develops the personality traits that helps the students run their own interviews in a confident way, present to 100 people, 1,000 people without feeling nervous. So that's my full-fledged product. I'm integrating new capabilities, right? And because I have learned a lot from my MVP phase, I'm also improving my user phase. I'm changing the way I'm interacting with my customer base. I'm not only interacting with them on Instagram or Facebook or the internet, right? I'm actually calling some of them over and giving them uh, feedback, giving them that token of appreciation, like what they do with these dealers, right? If you're not from that community, I'll tell you that let's say you're a paint dealer. Asian Paint comes and tells you, "Bhai, mera paint bech de," and you agree. If you sell 10 lakh cans or units, the Asian Paints guy will take you off to Bangkok. If you sell, let's say, uh, 10 million units, then they will take you to Singapore, right? What are they doing? They're improving the user experience. Like if you look at some, like I play chess. Every time on the app, every time I improve my rating, they give me a user experience of, do you want to go for a diamond subscription or do you want to stick around for a silver subscription and stuff like that. What are they doing? They're trying to improve my user experience, and by signing up for these user experiences, not only I'm retaining my customer base, but I'm also giving them something extra which is improving their user experiences. And while all of this is happening in the front of the market, you also have to worry about the back end. What is driving or keeping your business uptight and upright? It's the technology, the infrastructure that you're going. You have to ensure that your scalability also is taken care of on the back end side, because you don't want, and it happens a lot in our investment banking industry as well. I remember one case where I was working for a local bank, one of the biggest banks in the country, and on the retail side, and they were working on a product which would cater to about 100 10 crore, yeah, 10 crore clients. By the time that new software was implemented, the sales were so aggressive that they already had 20 crore clients on board. So that new system was just not capable enough, despite it having all the features that were modern at that time, that were new at that time. We just couldn't help the customers' needs because the infrastructure sucked. So we have to also ensure that while the front end is also good, the back end is also taken care of. Otherwise, this whole MVP to full-fledged product is going to fall flat, and eventually you'll be driven out of the business. So please take care of the boring stuff as well. While interacting with customers and being out there in the market is very exciting, if you don't have the boring stuff done, which is your back end stuff, which nobody's going to see you working on, then it's not going to work out. So it's a good balance that you need to have, that if you have X customers, this is my X capabilities back end wise. If I have X times 10 customers, then my back end capability also has to increase by X times 10, but it will be boring, hard work, but you'll have to do it nonetheless, right? So that's how the scaling of MVP to full-fledged work goes on. Now that we've understood what an MVP is, or what are the requirements of MVP and all of that, I'll come to the core of our session today, which is critical thinking. Now, what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is not just criticizing, right? Critical thinking is understanding uh, the understanding the data, or analyzing the data, or evaluating the data, or making judgment about all the informations and the ideas and situations that you have, right? These skills are all, because you all are engineers, you have developed, you've been developing these skills like logical reasoning and problem solving, right? And the ability to identify assumptions and biases. Now, assumptions and biases are different. My assumption that since you're all engineering or science students, you have logical reasoning, right? And my bias would be that since you are science students, you are nerdy. You see what I'm trying to see here? That assumptions are something which I made based on what I have seen, but bias is something that my inner self, my cognitive self tells me is something which is a given with you a lot, although it may not be true. All right. So cognitive skills are very important when it comes to critical thinking. Right. Apart from cognitive skills, we also need to have a questioning mindset. If you, I'm sure you would have heard of Richard Feynman, right? Richard Feynman has always been, in fact, any scientist or person who's been successful at running a business, their whole idea is challenging. What I mean by having a questioning mindset is, are you challenging your assumptions? Are you exploring perspectives? Is it, can somebody go on mute, please? Thank you. So yeah, what I was saying is that you need to have a questioning mindset. You have to challenge assumptions. You have to ensure that you have the you develop the capability of exploring multiple perspectives. You seek evidences to support your conclusions. You just don't say हाँ वो तो ऐसा ही है, but वो ऐसा क्यों है? वो वैसे क्यों behave कर रहे हैं? You need to have that evidence to support those conclusions, right? This will help us with our logical reasoning, problem solving ability, and ability to identify assumptions and biases. When we have this questioning mindset, we challenge everything, we seek evidences to support our conclusion, will help us in not making hasty decisions, and will also encourage us to think deeply about complex issues, because the marketplace is not simple. It's complex. It's made up of human beings with their own sets of biases and assumptions, and we are going to tackle that market. So we need to be absolutely clear about what we are offering, with having 100% confidence in the thinking or the thought process behind what we are offering. So you need to have that cognitive skills as well as questioning mindset around it, and then you need to have a analytical approach. What I mean by analytical approach is that when you see a problem, you just don't go head on. You got to break it down into smaller problems to see which one requires more time, which one has more moving parts, or which one is going to get fixed if you fix the first part. All of that with decision making capabilities based on that analysis will help you to become a well-rounded thinker or entrepreneur, to ensure that your MVP development in this maddening world is on point, stays on plan. Because the moment one of these things are off, that means you let your biases come in, or you don't question certain things, and you're not analyzing it from all the angles, then there is something that is missed, which can be very crucial and could lead to the eventual downfall of your business. So that's what critical thinking is. Now, what is the importance of critical thinking in MVP development is, it helps us to make informed decisions. If we know 100%, well, we will never know 100% of everything. But if we have enough data to make an informed decision, then that's going to save us from a lot of trouble later on. And you will work with people, all right? Whether you like it or not, whether you are a self proclaimed nerd or not, you will have to work with people. So you need to have a collaborative approach about your business. You need to have the capability to work with people, to take people along. Because if you're a founder of your own business, then you are the leader of that business, right? You will have teams working for you. And you need to ensure that you're taking all of them together on this ride that you have started for them, for continuous improvement, to fulfill their own careers and to challenge yourselves, and to ensure in the process that we are delivering customer delight, right? So informed decisions based on the data and feedback and everything that we get, and ensuring that every team member that we work with is taken along in the journey, because we don't leave somebody behind कि, hey, तेरे को ये सब पता नहीं तो चुप बैठ, तेरे को कोई पूछ नहीं रहा, नहीं? We don't want that, right? And we need agile responsiveness. What I mean by agility is that you have to be quick enough to identify and address any flaws in our hypotheses or in our product, and we need to pivot from that strategy कि भाई ये नहीं काम कर रहा, तो अभी अगले 10 दिन हम बैठे नहीं रहेंगे उसके ऊपर कि भाई काम नहीं कर रहा तो डेटा आएगा, फिर बात करेंगे, फिर 15 मीटिंग करेंगे. No, we don't want that. We want, because we are a small setup, right? We are a founder, we are on MVP stage, right? We should move faster. Because if we are not fast, what will happen is there is somebody out there who's faster than you. And eventually they will catch up, they will gobble you up, and then they will leave you behind and then zoom ahead. Right? So in this fast-paced competitive world, we need to be very agile in our responses. That means our infrastructure for feedback has to be top notch, and our team needs to feel like they are working on a mission that is some way improving somebody's world, right? So that's the importance of a critical thinking in our MVP development, right? Now, what is identifying assumptions? We have talked about assumptions and biases a little bit earlier. We have to examine the underlying beliefs. We have to ensure that all our assumptions that we identify are behind our some thought is behind our assumptions, right? Like when I say unconscious bias, and to give you an example of an unconscious bias is let's say you meet somebody from the south of India. You've not seen that person, you've just spoken to that person on phone. But the moment you hear a South Indian name, in your head the images of a dark person, a person who's short, dark, right? Because that's our unconscious bias. And that's what we should examine. That no, it may not be true because I'm stereotyping because of my unconscious bias. All I can say is let me just keep my biases aside and see what this person looks like. And turns out that this person is actually tall, fair, and extremely good looking, right? So that's you examining your underlying beliefs. And that's very important when you're working on a product which is going to be launched in as diverse a market as India. Because here you have different stuff happening every 100 kilometers in this country, right? People change, languages change, foods change, climates change, the way we do stuff changes, right? So it's a very diverse market, and we can't be working on our biases or our implicit or unconscious biases. So that's where we need to examine our belief system and then work with a truly neutral stance, right? And we have to question the obvious. When we are working on the MVP, we are working to bring something better out in the market. So we don't want to bring the same product out there. We want to have some differentiating factor, right? That is going to be our USP. That's what we're going to do. We're going to question the obvious. We're going to challenge the obvious and say, hey, ये इतना obvious है, but could it be better? All right. Or why is it so obvious? Why are we doing these things? Why can't we just not change the way we do things? And probably we will find a better solution. Trust me, I have seen this happen a million times in my career in finance, in investment banking. When I was training a new person, he asked me, why are we doing this? And I told him, "हम ऐसे करते हैं. This is how we do it. This is how the bank does it." After 6 months, he comes back and tells me, I've changed it. Can you look at it? It's a better way of doing things, right? So we got to question the obvious. Only then can we figure out a niche that we can exploit later and seek diverse inputs. Because when you seek diverse inputs, you will probably bear your assumptions. Like if I am going to meet another Guju, I'm a Guju. So if I'm going to meet another Guju and I'm going to talk about business, I'm just going to get a Guju perspective. He's going to be like, ha, dhando chhe, cash chahiye, bas, right? But if I speak to somebody else from a different part of the country or from a different culture from my own, then I'll probably get much better insights. That's why people or corporate harp upon multicultural, diverse team. It's because of that. And trust me, when I was in US, I used to work with a Jamaican and a Turkish guy and a couple of English people. When I was in Singapore, I used to work with Hong Kong, citizen of Hong Kong, Taiwanese, and Chinese, along with a few Singaporeans. The amount that I've learned from these people just by doing the same job because of the cultural inputs that I get from their own cultural background. It has opened up my eyes to a whole lot of things that were not open before I started working with them, right? So please seek that diverse input. It really help you in the long run. And you got to ask probing questions. You got to dig deeper. You got to delve deeper into particular assumptions, which is core to your product. If you're highlighting potential risks, then you will have to ask challenging questions, and things will get heated, no doubt about it. People may not like you for asking questions, but hey, you're in business. You want to sustain that business, and you want to ensure that business grows. And for that, you will have to ask probing questions. You will have to ask them, challenge them, and ensure that all the assumptions, all the biases are taken care of, and then decisions are made. All right. Now, how do you evaluate all the data and feedback and evidence that is coming to you? So, a benchmark. These are not the real numbers, but it's just a benchmark on how much you can rely on. That if 75% of the users or more are engaging with you in a particular way, then that's the target that you should go for or you should avoid. All right. Now, accuracy or integrity of the data. If 92%, or what I mean by integrity and accuracy of the data is that when you are seeking data, there is every chance there will be leakage, there will be distortion, and all of that. So you ensure that your data is, well, in banking, you have to be 100% accurate. Even 99% doesn't cut it. But in other businesses, about 92 to 95% is okay. So you should ensure that the accuracy and integrity of your data is closer to 100%, but about 90-95% should also do. And about 65 plus percentage of it should be representative of your target market. That means surveys will come along with certain outliers. You all know normal distribution, right? So there will be some outliers. You want to reject those outliers so that we can get to our target market. So that's the data that we have to evaluate. So when we are doing pricing in banking, we take off the highest price and the lowest price and then work with the prices that we've got from other brokers. What are we doing? We are looking at a representative market. We are not looking at outliers. We are not looking at tail events, right? So please work with this guidance for evaluating your evidences and data, and consider multiple perspectives. Please, I cannot stress enough how multiple perspectives are important. That's why you see a CEO always has an EA. Now, EA is not to fetching coffee. The EA is there to offer his input, learn from the CEO as well as offer his or her input. The CEO also has a COO. Why? Because the COO, from his expertise of running the operations, has some perspective which the CEO may not have, because the CEO is the strategy guy, right? The COO is the guy who actually runs the business. So he has that perspective. But the CEO also will not rely on just his perspective. He will also take the CMOs or the CIOs or the CFOs or the CHROs perspective, right? Those perspectives help us run the business smoothly, right? And the more diverse the team, the better the feedback, which will help identify our biases, which will help us foster empathy. What I mean by fostering empathy is that we understand where the other person is coming from. It helps us build those bridges, right? If somebody says, "Yeah, मेरे को बुखार है, मैं नहीं आ रहा हूँ आज," right? And if I'm not empathetic, I'll say, "हाँ तो हमेशा ऐसे करते हैं, get lost. I don't want to work with you." Or you can empathize and say, "Hi, I understand. I'll take care of whenever you're take care of yourself, and whenever you are feeling okay, come back and we'll begin from there. Start resume from there." You see, and that's something that helps us collaborate together. And it will also give you the confidence that your team is challenging your own assumptions as well. While you are challenging their assumptions, they are also challenging your assumptions, which will help you to work on the product, which is the whole aim of your whole setup, right? To ensure that the product is far from any issues. And this is how you, by honing our critical thinking capabilities, we will run a better product, a better firm. Now, when I say biases and logical fallacies, here's something that you need to work on. It is true, it happens with everybody that we have our confirmation biases, right? What are confirmation bias? If you read the slide, it's the tendency to seek out and interpret information in the way that confirms our existing beliefs. Like I gave you the example of the guy from South India. You got chat a chat and you just realize that the South Indian so kala hi hoga, right? Nata hi hoga. No, that's my confirmation bias. But if I speak to somebody from the Guju community, they will be like, ha, he will be gregarious and he'll be prone to taking risks, right? But we have all sorts of people across the world, across our country, who become victim to this confirmation bias. And when they become victim to our confirmation bias, remember, we are not helping our business. We have to work without any confirmation biases. We have to reduce hasty generalizations. Ki, "Haan, that community is just like that." No. Or that city is just like that. No. Please go and visit that city. Please go and understand that market before we jump to generalizations. Ki, "Haan, if it's a Bangalore market, then everybody will just be in Indiranagar and nobody will be in Jayanagar. Or if it's Bombay, then everybody will be in South Bombay, and the suburbs of Bombay will not use this product." Right? So these are hasty generalizations that we need to work with, or we need to get away of. Right? And we need to get rid of our logical fallacies as well. That uh, we should not assume certain things because ये तो ऐसे ही है या तो ये तो ऐसे ही चलता रहेगा कुछ नहीं होगा. No, please don't use that. Your whole job as a startup founder, or as your whole job as bringing in new kind of services or products in the market, is to ensure that you're challenging these logical fallacies, these hasty generalizations, these confirmation biases, to make sure that your product becomes a sustainable product for you to run for years to come, build a $1 billion company, and in the meanwhile, help a lot of people grow and achieve their goals, and become a business leader. Right? So please understand that critical thinking also means that you have to work with a lot of types of people with our own understanding of how the world works, and we have to get rid of all of that to ensure that our focus solely remains on understanding how we are going to ensure that this product, this service becomes successful once it's launched in the market. Now, with that, when you become big enough, initially when I started out, I was just one-person team, so I had no criticisms, right? Because who's going to criticize me? Me? Never, right? Because we're not, as a human tendency, you can't do that, right? And when somebody criticizes, we don't take it in the right spirit. You will realize that once you start working in the corporate world, that every time your performance appraisals or your boss calls you in a meeting for something that you should have done and have not done, or something you should have not done have done, he will give you criticism. And that's something that depends on how it is given. That's why constructive criticism is something that every single organization in this world is looking for. So what you got to do is you got to lead by example, right? You will be the person that your team will follow. So if you don't take feedback in the right way, your subordinates are not going to take feedback in the right way. If you don't give feedback in a thoughtful, respectful manner, you are not going to receive the same feedback the way you are expecting it, right? You need to set up an environment or a culture where people are free to give you feedback, right? And I can say that I'm proud of that because my team would call me up and say, "Hey, you, that's not how you do it. That's how you do it. Please don't do that because that other team gets impacted by this." Now, that's something that I've fostered a lot in my management days, and now I aspire to foster in my own firm, because that's what's going to lead you to have a team which will give you the full benefits of a collaborative, diverse experience, right? Like I said, diverse perspective. If you provide constructive criticism, diverse perspectives will be encouraged, which will help you uncover biases or softer blind spots, and it will lead to much better solutions. It will foster an environment people want to share stuff with you because you are being honest, and you know that by being honest, I'm going to actually add value to the firm's overall growth and ensure that we all grow together. And we normalize continuous feedback. What I mean by continuous feedback is not waiting for 3 months to give you feedback. All right. That's what typically happens in corporates, that they have a set calendar for feedback. I never did that. I never believe in that. If I think that my team could improve, I would just tell them right away that, hey, let's get into a meeting. Let me tell you how it could have been done, or how you have done, how it's helping everybody else, and we should adapt that for the entire team. What I'm doing is I'm doing it on a regular basis. I'm not waiting for a period or marked in my calendar for a particular feedback, right? So if you do that while you're fostering your teams and you seek customers' feedback on a continuous way, trust me, you are better off than at least 90% of the organizations that are out there in the world, right? So please, please, please work on, because as a business, what is a corporate or a small firm all about? It's all about people, right? You're going to be working with people and more people and more people. The bigger you grow, the more people you will work with, right? So you will have to ensure that you become a people person. Not that you have to please everybody when you become a people person, but you know how to move around, work your way with the people that you're working with. And these are the things that you should encourage, you implement in your own firm, in your own teams. All right. So, in a nutshell, what am I saying? I'm saying that you have to identify assumptions, ask questions, evaluate evidences, and then work on improving your product or your service. Okay. So, again, analyze, like I said, I'm just going to talk a lot about gathering feedback, analyzing data, and adjusting and reiterating the same stuff, because at the end of the day, it's what we are all about. The continuous loop, like I said in my previous slide, the continuous loop that we build of feedback and improvement, feedback and improvement, feedback and improvement will somewhere also drive us to have enough data where we'll have to analyze that data and adjust and change or pivot, right? Or persist. So that's what it's all about. And how do you ensure that our NPV becomes a full-fledged product? It's agile. This is nothing but being agile. These 4 points are not talking about anything else but agility. What is agility? Moving quick, moving to ensure that you are relevant, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to ensure that your hypotheses or your assumptions are working. You're working on those feedbacks, you're gathering feedback, and you're changing your basic functions to ensure that your products are out there in the market as soon as possible. Once it's out there, you are not sitting on patting your back, hey, market launch ho gaya. No, now is the time to work on the testing key. Feedback sahi se aa raha hai. Is it what you offered is actually working as you expected it to work? Are we going to require more investments, or are we needing more time or resources? What is it going to do? We need to test all of those, and then from those insights that we get from initial testing, we will reiterate, we will have a plan for improvement. कि हाँ ये feedback आ गया तो हम ये काम करेंगे, ये feedback आया तो हम ये काम करेंगे. We will have a plan. We will have everything put in paper with a plan, with a balanced approach, which means that while we are working on our feedback and iterations, we ensure that we are not running out there in the market with a product which is not okay or half baked, or we also don't get caught in this continuous refinement cycle, right? Yes, we need to analyze, but we also have to work on a balanced way. Ki, boss, itna paisa or itna time, should I implement this change, or can I work on something else? Because impact analysis, cost benefit analysis, right? So you have to work with, you have to juggle a lot of balls, my friends. But that's the excitement and challenging part of running your own businesses. So you have to have a balanced approach where you're working on a speed with the agility to ensure that your product is never not boring. All right. So please, please, please ensure that when you're working on your own MVP iterations. Then communications. I cannot emphasize how important communication is in all of our lives, any walk of life, communication, right? You would have noticed that few corporates lose a lot of sales because their communication went all over the place, or they did something that was stupid. So you have to ensure that you frame your insights. In this, framing insights effectively will become even more important when you go and ask these equity firms, private equity firms, and venture capitalists for money, because they are going to look at your data in and out. So, how you are going to frame or present your insights to them, which will turn in turn get them to lend you or invest in your business is going to be very important. You should analyze CEO speeches on business channels. You should see how marketers work with their product and their messaging. You should see how up and coming actors do that. They're doing only one kind of movie, right? What are they doing? They're now working on something very niche of theirs and then building a compelling case for that, right? Then tailor to audience, right? Tailor to audiences, whenever you're launching, you got to think of your audience. Like I remember this thing about Maggie. Now, Maggie to you may be something that you have seen since you were a kid. For us, no. We are the old fogies, and we didn't see Maggie till I was 6 or 7 years old. I was in school, I remember, and we were given 2 packets of Maggie free. You know, because back in the day we were not so exposed to the wild globalization that we are exposed to today. And in India we had a concept of ghar ka khana and very basic desi khana, right? We were not into pizzas and all of that, right? So what did Maggie do? They knew that if they were supposed to, if they targeted the adults first, it's never going to pick up. So what they did, they targeted children like us, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, because we were the future who was going to change the eating habits of this country. And that's exactly what they did. They got us hooked on to Maggie when we were 6 years old, 7 years old. And right now, look at it. आज बारिश गिरती है तो आप लोग क्या बोलते हैं? चलो यार मैगी खाते हैं, right? That's what they did with tailoring their communication to a particular audience, right? So we need to work on that, and that's what is a fruit of critical thinking. They would have challenged so many assumptions. They would have had thousands of hours of meeting just to come to this decision that we are not going to sell Maggie to the adults. We are just going to give it away to kids for free for the first few months in every school in the country, right? It's a huge cost. But look at that cost now benefiting them. I'm sure Maggie is selling in its billions, right? So that's what you get when you tailor your communication to the audience and facilitate dialogue, right? So many times we've seen, right? The customer services that work with us are the most delightful experiences compared to customer service employees who like press 4 and I'll get somebody to talk to you, or hang on, I will get back to you. And then they'll be like, no, sir, we can't help you, speak to somebody on this forum, right? They're not facilitating dialogue, right? So to ensure that your product becomes a huge hit, you have to ensure that your insights are directed at them in a message that is tailored for them, and you are ensuring that you are receiving the feedback, you are facilitating a dialogue, they know that we can talk to them. The customers need to have that confidence in our offering, that when we talk to an XYZ company, they will listen to me. That's what effective communication is all about. And you need to have a continuous learning and improvement mindset. There is no two ways about it. You need to have an inquisitive questioning mindset. You need to ensure that you're always questioning assumptions. Remember, right back when we started about critical thinking, we talked about this, because that's the inquisitiveness that will help you understand the world from a different perspective and probably channel up something that is nobody's ever stumbled upon, right? This will help you seek opportunities and growth on a regular basis and probably enhance your product offering as well, and collaborative improvement. If you don't take along everyone with you, you're going to struggle. No matter how many times somebody says that he's a one man show, no, that's not true. Nobody's a one man show. There is somebody always there to help that person, right? And it's that collaborative approach that will help you move to your goals, reach your goals faster, because you're willing to open up, willing to receive feedback, willing to work on problem solving, willing to experiment and chop things that are not working. All right. And because of all of this, if you will be rigorous about this, if you're regular about this, you are absolutely non negotiable about certain aspects of your life, then you'll always stay ahead of the curve. And when you stay ahead of the curve, you're already ahead of the market, and it will only help you bring about better changes, better improvements in your product, and that will help you serve your users or your clients much better. So that's all that we need to think about when it comes to critical thinking. It's all about your mindset, all about how you understand the consumers and how you are solving their problems. There are a few books. One book that I would want you to read is this book called Influence. Are you able to see it? Can you see this book?
Uh, okay.
It's called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert D. Cialdini. I will send the name to you, Dr. Neha, then you can pass it on to the students. It is a book that is recommended by Charlie Munger, who is who was Warren Buffett's right-hand man, right? So he says that if you don't read this book, then you will not,
मैं कैमरा ऑन कर
will,
लेना, ठीक है? स्क्रीनशॉट ले लेना, मैं आपका मैं ले लूँगी.
right? So that's all I have to, that's my 2 bits about critical thinking and MVP. I'm open to questions if you have any.
All right, students, if any one of you has any doubts, you can just turn on your cameras and turn on your mics and then just ask the expert.
Yes, Mohit.
Hello, sir. Am I visible and audible?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So, first of all, thank you for the insightful session, sir.
My pleasure, man.
So, what I wanted to ask is that since it was all about MVP, and I believe that you'll be only launching the final product, right? And not.
No. It's MVP is the very core of your product. The final product will be a mix of that particular bit with a lot of additions because of how the users have responded to what you've offered.
Yes, but actually, I was thinking about it in first person view, and I was a bit afraid that maybe my startup would, be cemented as a bad startup since the first product might not be that good.
That's all right, man. You know how many times Angry Birds founded, you remember, Angry Birds?
I know, I agree with sir.
They had about 50 odd different games that failed in the market. They were about to give up because they had burnt all their cash. Then they
Okay,
sat down and said, let's do one more game. And that was Angry Birds.
that's
So
excellent. But
failure is part of our process, my friend. If you don't fail, you don't learn. And if you don't learn, you can't work on it. So failure is a learning that should never stop us. Right? If you pick any invention that is out there in the world, they would have failed a lot of times before they got it right. Right? So
yeah,
please don't worry about failing. It's part of the process.
great. But the example that came to my mind was something like Micromax or Carbon comparing with iPhone, right? So Apple gave it
That's all
their
right.
all.
It's
Uh-huh.
different markets, right?
Of they are.
See, right. And my Apple user is never ever going to walk into an Oppo store. Never. It's not happening. Right? An Oppo's market, an Oppo client would probably want to go and buy an Apple iPhone, but they don't have the money.
That
So the
have money.
markets are different. So what market do you want to cater to? You want to cater to the 150,000 phone or you want to cater to the 15,000 phone? So that's
That's
very important. You have to ensure that you understand your primary consumers.
and that comes even before MVP, right?
Yes, absolutely. Like when I started my own firm, I knew exactly what I'm going to do. I did it in a phased manner. I'm now looking only, I was looking at Bombay, but since online is available, I'm now looking at pan India. But what is my primary target? Those 20-year-olds to 30-year-olds. And not all of them. Those who want to build their careers in this market of investment banking. So you see, I'm not talking about science grads who want finance or who don't want finance. I'm talking about science grads who want finance. I'm talking about law graduates who want finance. I'm talking about arts graduate who wants finance as a career option. So that's
Right.
what you have to do. Define your market first.
But I believe even Samsung is quite uh, doing a bit well, despite the fact that they have conquered a wide variety of customers.
See, Samsung is a conglomerate. Samsung is into aircon, Samsung's
Definitely.
into white goods, it's into phones, it's into industry, it's into finance as well. तो वो
You cannot
अलग दुनिया है
start.
यार.
Yeah, you cannot start like that, of course.
But when they look at Jio, na, when look at were you around when Dhirubhai Ambani's phone was launched way back in the 2000s?
Hmm.
They gave
Yes,
it away for $500. What did they do? They did not run a loss. Maybe they did run a loss for giving it away for $500, but they got everybody on the internet or on cell phones,
definitely.
right? So they developed a market. So you can do that as well. So it's about having a vision and then working towards that vision with a primary customer target in your mind.
Definitely. And
Like,
even
let's
on.
say
Mhm.
Rolls Royce. Do you think Rolls Royce is targeting me? No, right? Rolls Royce doesn't need to target anybody. People target Rolls Royce कि मैं एक दिन Rolls Royce खरीदूंगा.
Yes,
See what is
definitely.
happening.
But see, like, अगर Rolls Royce ने भी सोचा होता कि let's start with a smaller car to see how people are doing, because MVP का main purpose is to save
तो रोल्स रॉयस ने किया होगा
like
ना वे
from burning
बैक
out money, right?
100 years back when Rolls
Uh-huh.
Royce first started their first car, manufactured their first car, they would have seen the T model and all the other models out there in the market, and they would say, "Hey, ये स्टेयरिंग व्हील में ये कंपोनेंट यूज करो तो कैसा लगेगा? भाव बढ़ जाएगा। ठीक है ना, हमको तो ये एरेवर को बेचना ही नहीं, हमको तो सिर्फ मिलियनर्स को बेचना है." There you
Definitely.
go. That's how it works.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, man.
Okay, anybody else? All right, sir. I don't think so. There are any more queries. Uh, Thank you. It was such an indeed informative session, and we are glad that you accepted my invitation and you have
Pleasure's mine.
delivered such a marvelous,
Thank you
you
very much.
shared your
It was my
marvelous
pleasure.
knowledge on the topic.
It was my pleasure. I have the PDF version of the deck. I'll share it with you. You can share it with the students because after my presentation over in the appendix, I have about 7, 8 case studies of successful and failed startups and why did they fail or succeed. So you can share it with the students.
Sure, sir. Definitely.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
I'm very happy that I did this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Glad. I'll take your leave. Bye bye. You
Yeah,
guys,
sure,
all the
sir.
best.